Hi one and all, it's Nicki here. Welcome back to my channel. For those who are new, I'm a freelance editor and author, and I post vlogs here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the other things I love. Today's video comes under the latter category because it's one of my top 10 lists that I do one a month. I'm just talking about some of my favourite things, which sometimes includes books, but in days like today it also includes things like television. So it occurred to me recently, earlier this year I was doing a lot of re-watching of some old British series that I liked, and I came to realise that actually I do rather enjoy comedy, which if you'd said to me, oh, do you watch a lot of comedy, I'd probably say no, but when you stop and think about the shows I watch, actually I do, or rather I did in some cases. I don't watch as much now, but when I was in England I definitely loved a bit of comedy, so I thought I would do my top 10 UK comedy TV series for you. So we've got a bit of a joint one in the 10th spot because I couldn't quite make up my mind between the two of them which I liked most. And so we have Keeping Up Appearances and Dad's Army. So Keeping Up Appearances, for anyone who doesn't know, was about this woman called Hyacinth Bouquet, actually spelled bucket, but she was insistent that it was bouquet was the pronunciation. So she's a sort of middle class woman with upper class pretensions, and she's sort of disappointed in her very much lower working class rest of the extended family. And she has a long-suffering husband who has to put up with all her strange whims. It's great fun. Patricia Routledge played Hyacinth. She's brilliant. And it's just one of those that no matter, even when they put it on repeats and you see an episode you've seen before, it's still amusing. And the same goes for Dad's Army, which was obviously set during the war, about the sort of home army that stayed at home. And for some reason the name has completely just gone out of my mind for what they were actually called, and it'll come to me when I'm editing the video and I'll stick it, over here somewhere or over here somewhere for you. But a real classic one, and one that you can just watch again and again. And number 9, sticking with the war theme, Allo, Allo. A brilliant parody piece, essentially. Another one that's it just cracks me up every time I watch it, even though it's so familiar these days. Especially the policeman who thinks he can speak French. Good morning. Great fun. Great fun. Number 8, slightly more modern one, is the Vicar of Dibley, with Dawn French. Again, it's just one of those where you kind of know the jokes that are coming and it doesn't matter, they're still hilarious even though you can anticipate them every time. And yeah, just some great classic moments, and it's another of those shows that's repeated all the time, but whenever it's on, if there's nothing else you're watching, it's always great just to let it run in the background and have a giggle. Number 7, Absolutely Fabulous. Now this is a bit more of a contentious one. I guess the ones I've picked so far are all pretty mainstream comedies that a lot of people liked across the board. Ab Fab was a little bit more of a niche market, I guess. My mother hates it, she can't stand it, but my father doesn't mind it and I enjoyed it. So it's one of those that was a family split one. Whereas things like, Keeping Up Appearances, Allo, Allo, we'd all sit and watch. Ab Fab was definitely just me and Papa. For those who don't know, I'm honestly just assuming that everyone knows what I'm talking about here, so perhaps I should go back and say the Vicar of Dibley was about a female vicar who comes to this small rural community and has to initially get over their prejudices that she's a female vicar, and gradually builds friendships with this sort of quirky cast of rural characters. Absolutely Fabulous was a kind of mockery of stardom in a way. You've got these two women and all they want to do is take drugs and drink, and they think they're like, A-list celebrities, and they have one of them has a long-suffering daughter who's pretty down-to-earth, normal sort of intelligent girl who just can't stand this pretentious world in which her mother lives. So number 6 is a very new one, and it's one I've only really watched this year, and it's Upstart Crow. And it came out since I moved to Australia, so I only saw it when I was over there for Christmas just gone. They had a Christmas special on and I got to see it, and then since coming back they've started to show it on Australian TV, so I've been able to catch up with the first 2 series now. It's brilliant fun, written by Ben Elton and starring David Mitchell, and David plays Shakespeare. And so it's set in Shakespeare's times. Each episode sort of focuses on one of his plays and how he gets his inspiration for it. What I think is so clever about this show is that the comedy works on so many levels. There's the sort of lower level of comedy that's standard jokes that everyone can get. So he kind of makes fun of the terrible coach service, which is in line with the modern day English train system, and basically mixes modern language and Shakespearean sounding language. So you get a few jokes out of that. But then there's another layer, which is for people who vaguely know some of Shakespeare's plays. And they do a few jokes, general jokes about the plays that most people would get if they have a rough idea of the famous ones. But then you get a third layer, which is the humour for people that really know Shakespeare well and who really understand the period in which he lived and his contemporaries. So, you know, as soon as Robert Greene made his first appearance on the show, I just knew he was going to be the villain. And they announced that for the rest of the audience by Shakespeare going, "Oh, Robert Greene, he hates my gutlings." But I know that straight away because I know that from history there was an antagonism there. So it works brilliantly because it caters for all levels, whether you can find it funny even if you know nothing about Shakespeare and his works, but you can find it even funnier if you do, with all the little jokes about his blank verse and iambic pentameter and standing off to the side to soliloquize, and it's brilliant fun. Anyway, so that's number 6. So we're halfway through the list. At number 5, Jeeves and Wooster. So going back in time again, another oldie. So Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie perfectly cast as Jeeves and Wooster. It's one of those shows that, again, it really stands up well, I think. You know, you can still find it funny watching it now compared to when it first came out. It's a sort of comedy of manners. For those who don't know, who haven't come across the books or the TV show, Jeeves is a manservant, a valet for Bertie Wooster, who's a sort of man about town. And Bertie's a little bit hapless, gets into all sorts of scraps, and Jeeves is the one who always gets him out of them. So brilliant fun anyway. Very different style of comedy next for number 4, which is Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. So this is political comedy, a satire essentially. And this is one that when it was first aired I was too young to understand. I only came to it in later years through repeats on TV. And I actually did a bit of work in local council just before I left the UK. And it was so funny because I was just like, went home and I was just like, oh, Yes Minister is true. Everything they say in the show is true. And it's brilliant. It's a brilliant satire about the British political system. It was kind of mainstream in its time, but it's probably not one that's going to translate essentially well to, or especially well to, a foreign audience who perhaps aren't familiar with the British political system and the civil service and things. So I don't know how well that one would work with, say, a US audience, but I think it's hilarious. And so now coming into the top 3, exciting. Number 3 is Blackadder. Now, 4 seasons of Blackadder, wonderful show. Rowan Atkinson, Tony Robinson, brilliant comedic timing. They basically moved this show through historical periods, for those who don't know it. So you have the first one's kind of medieval, the second one was Tudor, Elizabethan, third one was set in the Georgian area, the Regency, and the final one is in the World War. So my favourite is definitely the Georgian one, followed by the Elizabethan one. Like 3 and 2 were my favourite series, although I love all of them. And it's just a really amusing, it's a very traditionally British style of humour, I think, but it's one that probably does translate better to other markets than like the Yes Minister we were just talking about. It's a bit more general humour, and it was a more of a mainstream appreciated piece in its time, and it still stands up really well. Again, it's one of those that even though it's true of all these on the list really, even though you know the gags, you can rewatch them and they're still funny. And number 2, the Brittas Empire. As you may know from some of my other videos, I've been rewatching Brittas this year. And the Brittas Empire starred Chris Barry and centred around Gordon Brittas, who was the manager of a leisure centre. He was a really well-meaning guy, he had a dream, he wanted to help people, but he really doesn't understand people at all. He can't read body language, he doesn't hear tone of voice, and because of that he gets himself in all sorts of scraps because he antagonises people without meaning to. and the rest of the workers in the centre have to try and live with his strange managerial style, and there's always catastrophes going on. It's a brilliant show. It was aired during the early to mid/late 90s, I think 97 it finished, around about sort of 90 to 97 I think. In some ways it's of its time because you watch them with these big mobile phones and things, and yet the humour still works. It was a very mainstream appeal show at the time, and it's still hilarious now. You wouldn't actually get away with some of the jokes now about keeping babies in drawers and things like that, but it's still hilarious. I understand there is some talk of doing a bit of a revival, so I'm actually quite fingers crossed. I think it could work because we can see Gordon Brittas like misusing the internet and completely getting everything wrong on social media. There's loads of possibilities that you can use with it, so I hope they do bring it back. Anyone who hasn't seen any, there are plenty of bits of it on YouTube floating around, so do have a look because it is hilarious. Which brings us to the #1 spot. Now, anyone who knows me and who's been watching my videos this year in particular will know what I'm going to say for this one, and of course it is Red Dwarf. So, for those who don't know, Red Dwarf is a sci-fi comedy, and it's interesting as a sci-fi show in that there are no aliens at all in the show. There's genetically engineered life forms, but although they're out in deep space, they never encounter aliens. It's a bit of an ongoing joke in the show. It's about Dave Lister, who is the last human alive, essentially. He was on a mining ship called Red Dwarf, and there was a nuclear explosion. He was in stasis at the time because he was being punished for having brought a cat on board. And so he survived, and the ship's computer Holly had to wait 3 million years to wake him up before the radiation was at a safe level. In the meantime, the cat survived in the hold and reproduced and evolved and has become a humanoid cat creature known as the cat. So you've got Dave the cat, Holly the ship's computer, and Holly brings back as a hologram Arnold J. Rimmer, who is the dead bunkmate, Lister's dead bunkmate. They hate each other, but he brings him back to keep Dave sane, and later along the way they pick up Crichton, who is a mechanoid, who joins the crew. And basically they're travelling through deep space trying to get back to Earth, having lots of adventures along the way, and insulting each other constantly because they don't get on. So it's a brilliant show. A lot of the humour is based around insults. They have their own swear words in the show. It's hilariously funny. It's one of those shows I could watch Red Dwarf every episode again and again and again, and I will never get bored of it. I mean, I'm not watching it every week, but I just did a big rewatch because it's the 30th anniversary this year, so I rewatched everything. They're still filming. It hasn't been continuous, obviously. There's been 12 series so far, spread over those 30 years, and they are going to be filming Series 13 soon. From the looks of it, there's been some cast talk on Twitter to do with scripts and contracts and things, so it looks like Series 13 is going ahead, which is awesome. It's a wonderful show. I mean, I'm totally in love with Chris Barry as Rema, which helps, but it's so funny, and if you haven't checked it out, do. It was very much a niche piece. It was quite a cult hit at the time, and I'd say that's still true. I mean, interestingly, I adore it. My sister and my dad don't mind it, but you know, they're not that fussed, and my mother hates it. She won't watch it, and my husband Corey doesn't like it. And it's interesting because Brittas Empire we just talked about, he watched with me recently and he loved it, and the humour styles are very similar. And as I just said, there's a lot of humour of insults in Red Dwarf, which isn't in Brittas, but other than that the humour styles are fairly similar, but he just doesn't get on with Red Dwarf. And the shows themselves, I mean, Brittas was a very much a mainstream hit, whereas Red Dwarf wasn't. So to me they're similar things, but to other people they're completely different, so who knows. But anyway, that brings us to the end of our top 10 UK TV comedy shows, so I hope you had fun. If you enjoyed this vlog, do subscribe and click on the little bell so that you get notifications of my new posts. I do post average once a week. So there's plenty of new material coming. I look forward to seeing you again very soon. I'll say goodbye for now. Bye bye.